Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Azira binti Mohammad Yacob. I am from TESL2. I will be presenting my TASK2 for Digital Innovation in Teaching and Learning, TSLB 3152. So the name of my innovation is the Magical Forest. First of all, we'll be starting with the background of the problem. Learners at lower grades have different learning abilities since they come from different socio-economic backgrounds. Based on my practical experience, some students are struggling with learning grammar because they have been learning it isolatedly. Plus, students think grammar rules are not important to learn and they are more focused on learning vocabulary. The reason may be that they lack motivation to learn or use grammatical features properly and also lack experience of grammar learning. Since they have a problem with this issue, grammar difficulties will persist as an obstacle in grammar learning. Teaching and learning English subjects will not be complete if the grammar aspect is ignored. Proper teaching of grammar enables effective use of language, provision of knowledge of the underlying rules, creates a platform for students to get an insight in structuring English language, and also will help the students to assimilate as well as accommodate correct patterns of the language. Plus, the sudden switch from face-to-face teaching to online learning platforms leaves teachers with no clue about the next step. Therefore, many teachers were not prepared for online teaching and learning. There is a study by Armugam in 2021 indicating that teachers felt unenthusiastic in online teaching and learning compared to the face-to-face teaching method. This is because teachers encountered difficulties in preparing online materials for Google Classroom. According to ISHA 2021, teachers found it hard to convert the hard copy materials to soft copies and share them on online platforms due to the lack of ICT knowledge and skills. Teachers who lack ICT knowledge and skills will need a longer time to prepare the materials. Hence, some teachers' normal lives were disrupted during online teaching due to the long working hours. Next, we will look at the trialogical learning design. During my practicum, I revised students' common mistakes in learning grammar. Then I analyzed it and decided to focus on one grammar item at a time. The object, which is my innovation, the interactive Genially presentation, is addressed to primary school students to learn about irregular plural nouns. This draft is then being shared with other trainee teachers who face the similar problems. Work is advanced through cycles of shared planning, brainstorming, getting feedback, presenting, and then publishing. Lastly, I produce a concrete work with better versions of my initial draft. As you can see in the graphic, there are 6 concrete activities that occur in technology-mediated processes, which are all centered around working on shared objects. So for process A, explicating real purpose and need, me myself as a future teacher in the learning community aims at producing knowledge artifacts, which is by using Genially to create interactive presentations and learn practices which have real use. That is something which is not made just for the purpose of the assessment, but which can be reused later on by any other educators or even students in the future. Even my artifact has been improvised from previously produced knowledge artifacts in the website, Genially. For the next process, which is framing, this is a kind of a brainstorming phase of the product where I need to organize the process. In this process, I do compare and contrast several other websites that provide the same type of function for the interactive presentation, such as SlideSgo, SlidesMania, and also Canva. I do work on every one of those websites to test the features and interactiveness. And for process C, drafting and versioning. I have been drafting the main ideas such as the language focus, the special elements, and visuals that will be added into the product. This will be the early version of the final product. After weeks of updating the drafts, I share this with my friends to gain concrete feedback and improvise to create the latest version. Next, for process D, which is number 4, examining and reflecting on produced knowledge artifacts. Both knowledge artifacts developed and enacted practices are constantly scrutinized and evaluated during the process in order to ensure the quality of the knowledge artifacts produced and practices enacted. I critically evaluate the overall status of the knowledge artifacts that have been produced and the activities and practices which have been conducted. I do ask for any suggestions, questions, or even recommendation in relation to things which have already been improvised. For process number 5, which is finalizing and specifying, my final product and practices are meant to be used later on by other teachers or students. Thus, I do explain the benefits, the manual, and the reason for this product being created to them. And for the last process, which is reusing, the element has a double role in the model. On one hand, in the starting phase of the trilogical knowledge creation processes, these existing product and practices are utilized as building materials and models for the new development. On the other hand, a central aim of trilogical learning is to produce a reusable interactive presentation and practices, meaning that the participants' knowledge creation and development work has a real meaning for other people in the future. Next is the description of my product. So, to achieve the learning outcomes and overcome the motivation problems in learning grammar, it is necessary to use digital learning media such as interactive presentation to regain students' attention. Generally, presentation is the program that allows the user to create educational outlines and more. Generally is the world leader in interactive visual communication. You can use Genially as your all-in-one online tool to create stunning presentation, interactive images, infographic, gamification, quizzes, breakouts, and also portfolios, and enrich them with interactivity and animation effects in seconds. This program is one of the most common learning media that is used during online learning in this pandemic due to its benefits and features. Genially is useful to teach materials that require visualization of the concept. The presentation that was used in this innovation is the interactive presentation. It is the presentation which allows two-way communication between the presenter or the teacher, and also with the audience, which are the students, where the content of the presentations are customized and suitable for the audience. Well visualized and including fun games, decorations, or interactive activities. It can also be defined as interactive lessons as the lessons that are suitable with the student's pace, individualized, and include formative and summative evaluations to measure students' learning outcomes. So my innovation is a presentation of language content which enables students to interact using navigation, hyperlinks, and also hotspots. So when they are learning, they can click on some content and something will happen such as pop-up box appearing, or they can jump to a specific slide. Sounds simple enough, but it what keeps them engaged throughout the lesson. So next one, I will be sharing with you about the objective and also aims. So with interactive display technology, students can not only view information but also interact with the content. In this regard, multimedia presentations encourage creativity, reflection, and self-confidence in students, especially those who lack self-confidence in language expression or language skills. Therefore, the use of presentations with gaming effects reduces the students' tension and fear as the teaching and learning process gets fun and also interactive. For instance, the use of hyperlinks generates or direct learners towards certain features, places, and objects that are abstract, thus making the teaching more concrete. The use of quiz games allows the teacher to get immediate feedback and observation on what students perceive and understand in their learning process. So it also gives a lot of benefits for students as the quiz games create an interactive classroom and students are actively involved in the teaching and learning process. The transitions make the teaching and learning process for primary school learners teacher-centered design where learners take much involvement in the learning exercise. Animation effect makes a quiz game student friendly as it limits the number of statements to display on the screen at a time. For instance, the fly in animation allow display of a single word, single letter or figure on the screen, thus reducing students from being distracted. The use of the quiz can function as reinforcement for students as they mostly observe motion slides and the attached statements. In addition, the quiz game allows a balanced classroom participation for both teachers, slow learners, and also quick learners. Next is the manual of my innovation. So first of all, teacher chooses a language focus that needs to be assessed for the lesson. In my case, I choose to focus on irregular plural nouns. Next, teacher creates a short story that incorporates the language focus. Teacher chooses an interesting template that matches the theme of the short story. Teacher uses the hyperlink and creates multiple questions to ensure the generally slides are interactive enough. Then teacher ensures the extra features and decorations added in the slides are not distracting the process of learning for the students. And teacher demonstrate the use of the Genially to the students and then share the link. And last but not least, teacher assesses and provides feedback to the students. There is an important measure that needs to be taken into consideration, which is student accessibility. Students with visual or hearing impairments may not be able to fully access a Genially presentation, especially those with graphics, images, and sounds. Use an accessible layout. Built-in slide template layouts were designed to be accessible. The reading order is the same for people with vision and for people who use assistive technologies such as screen readers. If you want to alter the layout of theme, use the slide master. This will ensure that your slide will retain accessibility. So those are the things that teacher need to be focused on. And next one is the impact on education stakeholders. As for teachers, the learning curve for the technology is often perceived to be too steep. There is always a reluctance, particularly among the older and less technology-oriented staff, to adopt the new technologies. However, editing of each Genially presentation file is very easy with minimal associated reprinting costs. Thus, it is much more comfortable and encouraging for teachers who lack ICT knowledge and skills to start using digital material by using interactive Genially presentations. Other than that, teacher can create dynamic and immersive lessons, track student engagement, provide a personalized support, and also design materials tailored to virtual learning. As for students, they will have a better retention of information. It is normal to get distracted in any presentation. Thus, it is very important to use different tools to capture the students' attention, such as interactive material through videos, audios, and also GIF. Effective use of Genially presentation will enable students to learn effective speaking, learn good listening and communication skills, grammar, good vocabulary building, proper pronunciation of terms, reading, and also writing. And last but not least is the conclusion. Nowadays, teachers are still adhering to the traditional forms of teaching, where to explain the teaching concepts, they mostly use non-interactive PowerPoint presentation or illustrate content via videos taken from YouTube. Students clearly need to break away from such learning routines and embrace new learning streams that make them curious about the learning content, connect them to their smart devices, and make them feel close to each other in class. Interactive generally presentation is an add-on that allows the possibility of interaction with the learning content by the student through smart devices while accessing through a special code. The integration of many animation and slides that fit any subject areas such as mathematics, language, social or science subject areas, compiling questions for students about the progress of the learning process, or using different options to address and explain a problem, phenomenon, or concept. From the foregoing literature, the use of ICT in the teaching of primary classes is enormous and it cannot have been assumed. For instance, in the 21st century, the majority of children are familiar with the internet, use of electronic devices, and playing various games on their phones and computers at their homes. Therefore, the exposure of children to social media has made them shift experience from book-based to a virtual world. This innovation possesses several strengths, including accessibility, real-time response system, and session review features. To conclude, this platform has great potential to improve students' engagement and achievement in both face-to-face and also online English instruction. So last but not least, I will present to you the innovation to improving students' grammar. So my innovation is the magical forest. Um, I'm sorry, still loading. Okay, so these are my innovation adventures in the magical forest. So student will just have to read the instruction, and this is the short story that are related to the grammar item. So they will give some time for student to read, and then student can press next. Okay, so these are the missions where each place have a question for students or maybe two questions for them. So students need to answer all correct questions so that they can gain the stuff for their backpack. Okay, so if they got incorrect answer, they will be written back to this set of question. So students have to collect several items for their backpack until they gain their key to go back home. Okay, this is the part where I choose to use Genially compared to other um, websites such as Slides Mania or Slides2 because it have these interactive features that are a little bit different where students have to find the code using the given torchlight and student can enter it on their own and also find the key where all of these features are draggable and that's all. So that's all for my innovation. Thank you.